The story begins with Larissa and her husband. They are returning home after their honeymoon. Larissa's husband loves her deeply. Larissa also cared for him deeply and really enjoyed his company. As they board their flight, we learn about Larissa's strange habit. She never fastens her seatbelt on purpose whenever she's on a plane. Today is no different. She leaves her seatbelt unbuckled, rests her head on her husband's shoulder, and begins to enjoy the journey. At first, the flight was smooth, and everything seemed perfect. The journey was going just fine. But they had no idea that amidst all the good things, something terrible was about to happen. Suddenly, the plane started shaking violently, waking Larissa from her sleep. She looked outside and saw another plane heading straight toward them. Before she could even react, the other plane crashed into theirs, splitting it into two. The impact also destroyed their plane's engine, causing a massive fire. The aircraft started breaking apart rapidly, spiraling toward disaster. The plane's pressure system had completely failed. Since Larissa hadn't fastened her seatbelt, she was thrown into the air by the sudden force. She struggled, flailing her arms and legs, desperately trying to stabilize herself, but nothing worked. After a lot of effort, she somehow managed to grab onto a loose airplane seat. Her heart pounded with fear. She just wanted to reach her husband and sit beside him. But before she could move, a powerful explosion erupted in the back of the plane. The impact was so strong that the entire rear section of the aircraft broke off and plummeted toward the ground. Even though the back of the plane had crashed to the ground, the front section, where Larissa was still flying rapidly through the air. But she didn't care about anything else. Her only focus was reaching her husband. Everyone on board felt the same terrifying truth. Death was near. Suddenly, a powerful air pressure shift threw Larissa forward. Before she could be swept away completely, her husband grabbed her hand, trying to save her. But the force was too strong. He could only hold on for a few seconds before their hands slipped apart. The front section of the plane, where Larissa was now falling rapidly toward the ground. The part where her husband had been was already gone. It had crashed completely. But instead of thinking about her own death, Larissa had only one thing on her mind: her husband. She knew she had to survive to find him. With great difficulty, she managed to climb into a seat and quickly buckled her seatbelt. After that, everything went blank. The scene fades out, and when we return, some time has passed. Larissa's chair is now lying in the middle of a dense forest. The plane has been completely destroyed in the crash. As Larissa slowly regained consciousness, the horrifying reality hit her. She had just survived a massive plane crash. The moment she remembered, a sharp pain shot through her leg. When she looked down, she was horrified. Her leg was in terrible shape. A large metal rod had pierced straight through it. The sight alone was unbearable. She knew she couldn't walk in this condition. Summoning every ounce of courage, she gritted her teeth, grabbed the rod with both hands, and pulled it out of her leg. The pain was unimaginable, but she had no choice. She had to survive. Larissa screamed so loudly that her cries echoed through the entire forest. As soon as she pulled the rod out, blood started gushing from the wound. Desperate to stop the bleeding, she tore a piece of her skirt and wrapped it tightly around her leg. But it wasn't enough. The blood kept flowing. She knew that if she wanted to survive, she had to move. Summoning all her strength, she tried to stand, but the pain was too intense. Hoping that rescuers had already arrived, she began shouting for help. But luck wasn't on her side. There was no one around. She was completely alone. Gathering all her strength, Larissa forced herself to stand. As she struggled forward, she noticed a shadowy figure in the distance. Hope sparked inside her. Maybe she wasn't alone after all. Relieved, she reached out and gently touched her. But the moment she did, her heart sank. The girl was dead. The realization shattered her last bit of hope. Overwhelmed by pain, exhaustion and grief, Larissa lost consciousness and collapsed. Meanwhile, news of the plane crash had reached the authorities. The military quickly launched a rescue operation, sending teams deep into the forest. Rescuers moved swiftly, searching for survivors. But so far, no one had found Larissa. She was still out there, alone and unconscious. After a long time, Larissa felt something sting her face. It was a mosquito bite. The pain jolted her back to consciousness. As soon as she woke up, she heard the distant sound of a helicopter. Her heart raced with hope. Rescue had finally arrived. Determined to survive, she decided to keep moving. She grabbed a scarf from the lifeless body beside her, then, despite the unbearable pain, pushed forward. Following the sound of the helicopter, she made her way through the dense forest. Luckily, she soon stumbled into an open clearing, a perfect spot where the rescue team could see her from above. Larissa desperately waved the scarf, trying to signal the helicopter, but, unfortunately, the pilots didn't see her. She refused to give up and kept moving toward the helicopter's direction. Every step was agonizing, her body was weak, and the pain was unbearable. As she walked, she stumbled upon a small teddy bear. To her, it felt like a treasure. But there was a reason this teddy was so important. Something she had learned before would now save her life. She carefully removed a badge pin to the teddy, straightened its pin, and then placed it on a leaf after rubbing it against a surface to magnetize it. This simple trick turned the pin into a makeshift compass. Her husband had taught her this survival trick during one of their camping trips, and now, that very lesson was keeping her alive. Following the directions shown by the leaf and pin, she finally reached a river, a source of clean drinking water. Larissa drank as much water as she could, washing her face and refreshing herself. Then, she filled a plastic bag with clean water to carry with her. After that, she returned to the crash site. The cold was becoming unbearable, so she took a jacket from a deceased woman and put it on. She also picked up a sturdy stick, tying the water bag to it for easy carrying. Using the stick for support, she began her difficult journey forward. She moved cautiously, aware of the dangers lurking around her. The forest was full of threats, but she carefully navigated through them, determined to survive. After hours of exhausting travel, she finally emerged from the dense forest into an open field. But she had no idea this place was even more dangerous than the forest. It was a swamp. Before she could react, the ground beneath her gave way, and she was sucked into the thick, muddy quicksand. Panic set in as she struggled to break free. She reached out desperately, grabbing at the soft ground, but it only crumbled in her hands. The swamp was pulling her in fast. Just as she was about to be completely swallowed, she used every last bit of strength to push forward and grabbed onto a tree branch. Luckily, the branch was strong enough to hold her weight. Clinging onto it for dear life, she slowly pulled herself out of the deadly trap, gasping for breath. Larissa had no strength left. Completely exhausted, she drifted into a deep sleep. Some time later, she woke up and realized the place was extremely dangerous. Without wasting any time, she forced herself to get up and continue moving forward to save her life. She decided to take the mountainous path, believing that if she reached the top, she might find someone who could help her. Despite the deep wounds on her feet and the unbearable pain, she kept climbing, pushing herself beyond her limits. But fate had other plans. Just as she reached the top, her foot slipped. Before she could react, she lost her balance and tumbled back down the steep slope. At that moment, all of Larissa's hope shattered. She felt like giving up, lying there forever. But then, memories of her husband flooded her mind, all the beautiful moments they had shared. She had never imagined that their honeymoon trip would turn into such a nightmare. The thought of losing her husband forever hit her hard. That's when she made a decision. She had to find him. That single thought gave her the strength to stand up again. Pushing through the pain, she climbed back up the mountain, refusing to let fate defeat her. This time, she made it to the top. The view was slightly brighter, and for the first time in a while, there was a sense of peace. She decided to rest for a moment, but peace wasn't in her destiny. A few feet ahead, a hungry tigress was lurking, searching for its prey. Larissa froze. She thought she could quietly slip past, but luck was not on her side. The tigress had already spotted her. As soon as the tigress locked eyes on its prey, it charged toward Larissa. She had no choice but to run for her life. But with a deep wound in her leg, she couldn't run at full speed. The tigress, on the other hand, was closing in fast. With every passing second, the gap between them shrank, and Larissa felt her heart pounding in terror. She thought this was the end. There was no way she could outrun it. But fate had different plans. Just ahead, there was a deep pit. Before she could react, Larissa fell straight into it. The tigress, unwilling to jump in after her, simply walked away, leaving her behind. Once the danger was gone, Larissa pulled herself out of the pit and began climbing up the steep hill in front of her. It was a tough climb, but she kept pushing forward. And then, as she reached the top, she froze. On the other side of the mountain, she saw it, a wreckage of the plane. But not just any wreckage. It was the part where her husband had been. Her exhaustion vanished in an instant, replaced by overwhelming hope and excitement. She had finally found him, or at least, she hoped she had. Overwhelmed with excitement to find her husband, Larissa didn't think twice. She rushed down the mountain as fast as she could. Reaching the icy river below, she stepped into the freezing water, determined to cross it. But the river was far more dangerous than she had expected. As soon as the water got deeper, the strong current swept her away. The freezing temperature numbed her entire body, making it almost impossible to move. She struggled to stay afloat, desperately grabbing onto anything in her path. Finally, after an intense fight against the current, she managed to grab onto a rock and pull herself toward the shore. Gasping for breath, she crawled onto the riverbank, right where the plane wreckage was. Her heart pounded with hope. This was it. Her husband had to be here. But as she looked around, her hope quickly turned to horror. Instead of finding her husband, she saw a rotting corpse. The body had been there for days. The realization hit her. 3 days had passed since the crash. Taking a closer look, she recognized the uniform. It was the pilot. Near the pilot's seat, she found something that could help her, an emergency flare gun. It had 2 bullets. Desperate to be rescued, she gathered all her strength and fired the first shot into the sky. But nothing happened. There was no response. No one had seen it. Realizing she couldn't afford to waste the second bullet, she made a decision. She would climb to higher ground before firing the last shot. Larissa knew she had to keep moving and find a higher spot to fire the last flare, somewhere people could actually see it. As she struggled forward, her foot hit something. A bag. She bent down and picked it up, realizing immediately, it was her husband's bag. Her heart pounded with hope as she unzipped it. Inside, she found several sketches he had made just for her. Seeing them brought a flood of emotions. If his bag was here, it meant he had to be nearby. Clutching onto this new hope, she dropped everything else and frantically started searching for him. And then, finally, she saw him. In the distance, he was still strapped to a plane seat. Tears filled her eyes as she ran toward him, collapsing into his arms. After 3 days of hell, she finally felt a moment of peace. Overwhelmed with relief, she pulled out her wedding ring from her bag and gently slid it onto his finger. For the first time in days, they both felt safe. Holding on to each other, they finally allowed themselves to rest, falling asleep in each other's arms. A little while later, Larissa's eyes fluttered open. Her heart was still warm from the relief of finding her husband. But as she fully woke up, reality crashed down on her like a nightmare. What she had seen, the reunion, the embrace, the wedding ring, was all just a dream. In front of her, the truth was horrifying. The body she thought was her husband was just a lifeless corpse. The realization hit her like a knife to the chest. A scream tore from her throat, echoing through the forest. She sobbed uncontrollably, her cries swallowed by the vast wilderness, unheard by anyone. But then, through her pain, she heard something. A distant rhythmic hum. A helicopter. The rescue team was finally here, hovering near the river. Larissa's survival instincts kicked in. With every ounce of strength left in her, she began climbing the hill. She had only one bullet left in the flare gun. She had to make it count. With every bit of strength left in her, Larissa fired the last flare into the sky. But as soon as she pulled the trigger, her body gave out. 3 days without food, the endless injuries, and the sheer trauma of everything she had been through, her body simply couldn't take it anymore. A rescue officer spotted the signal and rushed toward her. As they reached her, they saw just how critical her condition was. She was weak, barely holding on. They carefully lifted her up and carried her to safety. As the helicopter lifted off, taking Larissa away from the nightmare she had survived. And then, the final revelation appeared. This wasn't just a story. In 1981, a real-life plane crash left only one survivor, a woman who endured impossible odds to stay alive. This was her story.